Congressmember Judy Chu. I represent Monterey Park in Congress. It's such a special place for me because it's where I've lived for 37 years, and it's where I served for many years on the City Council and as mayor. That is why I'm especially grateful to President Biden for coming to our city, which has a deep hole in its heart, a hole that is yet to heal. To have the leader of our nation come here to console our grieving community is monumental. President Biden, your presence is making a difference to so many. It was on Lunar New Year's Eve, January 21st, a time that should have been one of celebration and joy, that a gunman came into our city at Stardance Studio, killing 11 people and wounding 9 others. He then drove to another dance studio, Lai Lai Ballroom in Alhambra, to shoot even more people. Thankfully, Brandon Tsai heroically disarmed him, but then he got away. As our entire city and LA area awoke the next day, the fear and shock was palpable. I was on the ground at City Hall that next morning. I saw the fear in my neighbors' eyes and heard the terror in their voice as they told me they were afraid to go home, go shopping, or even send their children to school. A day-long manhunt ensued, but thankfully, Sheriff Robert Luna and his team tracked him down miles away. Surrounded, he ended his own life. Though the immediate danger of the shooter was gone, Monterey Park and the Asian American community nationwide are still reeling, and we are still grieving. As the first suburban Chinatown in the U.S., Monterey Park holds a special place in the heart of the nationwide Asian American community. That's why it feels as though the attack on Monterey Park was an attack on Asian America. I've met with the victims' families, and I've come to understand how special the victims were. They were mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters. They were all Asian American immigrants from China, Hong Kong, Vietnam, Taiwan, and the Philippines, who worked hard to build their lives here. They did not deserve to be taken from us. But what is making a difference is the community. I want to thank the community for helping so immensely in their recovery. I know many of you are here today. And I especially want to thank President Biden for providing every federal resource possible. From the moment the shooting happened, federal law enforcement resources were here on the ground to help in the manhunt. Then, in the days following the attack, Vice President Harris and senior White House staff were here, bringing condolences from the president. Health and Human Services Secretary Xavier Becerra visited here to discuss our recovery and found that though FEMA, or the Federal Emergency Management Agency, coordinates responses in a natural disaster, there is no such coordinated response after a mass shooting, resulting in much confusion and frustration. And then Administrator Isabel Guzman Castillas of the Small Business Administration visited the small businesses near the shooting site to offer resources. We also know this. This shooter had a semi-automatic pistol with a high-capacity magazine that allowed him to shoot 42 rounds in a matter of minutes. He should never have had a weapon that was made for war, nor should the shooters in Half Moon Bay, Buffalo, Uvalde, and countless other places. This carnage must end. Yes. And that's why we must pass a national assault weapons ban. also know this shooter was deteriorating mentally, having gone to the police to complain of his family poisoning him. Our red flag law could have enabled someone to have his guns removed, but I doubt that our immigrant community knows about it. So multilingual outreach is needed about this law to all our communities. So President Biden, thank you for meeting with the victims' families as well as the wounded and consoling them. Thank you for being with us today in an ultimate act of healing. Thank you for letting us know that we are not alone. And thank you for continuing to raise your voice for an assault weapons ban in this country, as well as for measures in your gun violence executive order, especially with regard to enhanced red flag implementation and a coordinated FEMA response to mass shootings. We need this so that no other community has to go through what we've gone through. Thank you.
Please welcome Los Angeles County Supervisor Hilda Solis.
Good afternoon, everyone. I want to start this. I'm Supervisor Hilda L. Solis, and I represent the 1st District on the LA County Board of Supervisors. And I'd like to start, first of all, by welcoming President Biden to Los Angeles County, especially to Monterey Park, a city with over 60,000 residents who I am honored also to serve and represent. Thank you so much for being here, the epicenter of a tragic mass shooting. Yes, but Mr. President, this is also an epicenter of hope and resilience. Here in Los Angeles County, I am honored to have 4 other colleagues sitting on a historic all-women board who, by the way, are all strong gun safety advocates just like myself. Just this year alone, we have unanimously passed 5 gun safety motions, including one you might be familiar with, Mr. President. You and Senator Feinstein put forward 2 bills to ban military-style weapons and high-capacity magazines, in addition to raising the age from 18 to 23 years of age to purchase them. And last month alone, I authored a motion that passed unanimously to support Senator Feinstein's reissuance of these 2 bills. Senate Bill 25 to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and Senate Bill 14 to raise the age from 18 to 21 to purchase assault weapons. Mr. President, you are exemplifying what we need: strong leadership on all levels of government, to be brave, to be courageous, and to stand with victims and survivors against gun violence. I refuse to believe that thoughts and prayers are going to somehow protect our children and lift our country out of this gun crisis. Your issuance of an executive order on gun control today is a perfect example of what is needed precisely here in America. Every day, we use the authority we have at the Board of Supervisors to keep our 10 million residents safe from gun-related violence, and to support the work of other brave colleagues that you're going to hear from, and you've already heard from our Congresswoman, you'll hear from our U.S. Senator, but you'll also hear from our President. And next Tuesday's meeting at the LA County Board of Supervisors, I will be putting forward a motion to support President Biden's executive order. Mr. President, you have my support, and I believe the support of many in Los Angeles County. And LA County is ready and willing to continue supporting your efforts and vision to have a safer America for everyone. Sí se puede, and muchas gracias.
Please welcome Senator Alex Padilla.
Good afternoon, Monterey Park. Good afternoon. It is a solemn honor to be back in Monterey Park today here alongside so many friends and colleagues, including Representative Judy Chu and Supervisor Solis, whom you just heard from, but also with first responders, with community leaders, with friends and loved ones of those wounded or taken from us in January. And it is my privilege, Mr. President, yes, he can hear me. It is my privilege, Mr. President, to welcome you back to California. But I must say that this year it's been too often in the shadow of tragedy and heartbreak. Today we gather in Monterey Park, a proud and diverse and welcoming community. 2 months ago, it was here that families gathered to celebrate with good food and lively music on the eve of Lunar New Year, and eagerly awaited calls from loved ones wishing them good fortune in the new year. But instead, the families of 20 of our neighbors, after a night of horror, received a different type of call. That night, as we know, a lone gunman entered the Star Ballroom and claimed 11 lives while injuring 9 others, taking from us parents and grandparents, and making our AAPI community in particular live in even more fear for their lives. Now, there's no denying it. We have a gun violence epidemic in America. The gun industry continues to work overtime to create a culture of chaos because to them, American lives are worth less than the profits they make on the guns that they sell. But last year, under President Biden's leadership, Congress broke the stranglehold of the gun lobby when we passed meaningful gun safety legislation for the first time in nearly 3 decades. But today, as we gather, not just to remember, we can celebrate the continued leadership of President Biden with his historic executive actions to enforce background checks, to further analyze, get this, to further analyze the despicable tactic of marketing guns to children that the gun lobby is engaged in, but also to make sure that we surge resources for communities like this in the wake of mass shootings. Despite the good that these executive orders will bring, as we all know, there will still be more work to do. That includes bringing back universal background checks. Absolutely. And as Supervisor Solis just mentioned, we should follow the example of then Senator Biden and our own Senator Dianne Feinstein for their work in 1994 in banning the sale of assault weapons, and we should ban high-capacity magazines as well. Now, we don't just remind ourselves of these proven policies lightly. We know the work that we have cut out for us. So we are very clear-eyed in knowing the opposition that we continue to encounter from Republican members in Congress who stand in the way of these common sense gun safety measures. And it would be easy, as we have in trauma after tragedy after trauma after tragedy after so many years, to feel hopeless. But if ever the United States of America needed to find a source of strength, it is found right here in the community of Monterey Park, California. Just think about what we saw, what the nation saw in the days and weeks after the tragedy in January. What we saw was remarkable resilience. We saw the strength of those who rallied this community, like my guest at this year's State of the Union address, the former mayor, Henry Lowe. Give him a round of applause. Along with the new mayor, the entire council, all the leaders of this community, elected and otherwise, who came together to call for calm and healing for so many families. We saw the strength of this very Boys and Girls Club, who honored those lost by celebrating Lunar New Year and giving kids a chance and a place to play or to cry and to heal. We saw the strength in the waves of community members who gathered to build a memorial outside the Star Ballroom, where neighbors would come together to comfort one another and to process the tragedy together. You see, as we heal, and it's a process, it will continue to take time, but as we come together to heal, we know, just as President Biden knows, that the pain and the heartbreak may diminish over time, but it will never completely go away. But we can honor those who were taken from us by taking action to prevent future incidents of gun violence. We can and must save lives. We know what to do. We need the will of Republican members of Congress to help us do it. And we can honor those lost by reclaiming the sacred spaces and celebrations and by embracing the people and places that will always make Monterey Park strong and special. Thank you all for being here today. Thank you for having me. Let's welcome President Biden.
Someone to say, setting
ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Thank you. Please have a seat if you have one. Good afternoon. Saturday, January 21st, 2023, Lunar New Year. A time to enjoy. A ballroom dance studio, place of happiness, friendship, and belonging. People across backgrounds and generations celebrating their cultural roots and bonding through ballroom song and dance. Place of refuge where immigrants have lived for years. Supported new immigrants who just arrived, becoming not just friends, but family. But as we all saw, a day of festivity and light turned into a day of fear and darkness. A holiday of hope and possibilities marked by horror and pain. Vibrant dances, music replaced by vigils and memorials. 11 souls taken, 9 injured. Private mourning made public. That sense of safety shattered. Survivors will always carry the physical and emotional scars. Families left behind who will never be the same. One of the worst mass shootings in California history. A tragedy that has pierced the soul of this nation here in Monterey Park, the San Gabriel Valley, the heart of the Asian American community. My dear friend Judy Chu, former mayor of Monterey Park, your congresswoman and chair of Congressional Asian Pacific Caucus. Senator Alex Padilla, champion for this community, the entire state. My good friend, Supervisor Hilda Solis, and all elected officials, law enforcement, first responders, faith leaders, community members, all here today. You've shown up for this community, and I know you always will. To the families of victims who spend time, I get a chance to speak with today, and whom Vice President Harris spent time with a few weeks ago. I'm here on behalf of the American people to mourn with you, to pray with you, to let you know you are loved and not alone. Every case is different, but I know what it's like. I know what it's like to get that call. I know what it's like to be told. I know what it's like to lose a loved one so suddenly. It's like losing a piece of your soul. It's like a black hole in your chest you feel like you're being sucked into. Suffocating, hardly able to breathe. The anger, the pain, the depths of the loss so profound it's hard to explain. The suddenness tends to magnify the grief. As time passes, the shock and numbness slowly make way for the sobering reality of their absence. An empty chair at the dinner table, the birthdays, the anniversaries, the holidays, without them. Everyday things, small things, the detail you miss the most, the scent when you open that closet door, the park you go by that you used to stroll in, the morning tea you shared together, the bend of his smile, the perfect pitch of her laugh. As Judy shared with me, this is a tight-knit community with intergenerational households and deep reverence and respect for its elders. A community that's opened its heart and its homes to friends and neighbors and stood strong throughout the pandemic as anti-Asian hate crimes rose. A community that in the face of horrific tragedy has become a symbol of hope and resilience. Pushing forward together, healing together, people from all faiths and backgrounds rallying to show their love and support, raising money for funeral costs and memorials, providing counseling, and translation services to the victims' families, providing and proving that even with heavy hearts, we have unbreakable spirits. As a nation, remember them. Immigrants from China, the Philippines, Vietnam, Taiwan, all of whom found a home in America. Mr. Ma, age 72, a pillar of the community, a beloved manager and dance instructor at Star Ballroom. He walked patrons to their cars at night, helped new immigrants find jobs. His children and grandchildren will carry on his legacy in the spirit of one of his favorite Chinese proverbs: cherish the people in front of you. Cherish the people in front of you. And Igao, 72, Mr. Nice, for his kindness, his positivity, his infectious smile. Free spirit, always ready to lend a helping hand. He died shielding his dance partner. Showed you on you, 57, devoted mom, wife, sister, woman of faith, always there to help others, bringing food and newspapers to family members who had trouble walking. Always working tirelessly with her husband to build a future for their 3 children. Nancy Jian, 62, known as Sister Sunshine. She loved to play cards, piano, and the weekly volleyball game. Always sharing her homegrown plants and vegetables with neighbors and friends. A dedicated mom, married nearly 40 years. Husband and wife who were always together, even in their last dance. Valentino Alvaro, 68 years old, a servant of God, life of the party, storyteller, who made the whole room laugh, a man devoted to his children and his grandchildren. Mei Nan, 65, the bedrock of her family and friends. Eternal optimist, avid dancer who'd visit the studio every weekend, often leaving snacks behind for her classmates. She radiated positive energy through her laughter, her kind words, and her smile. Moy Dayun, 67, refugee, community builder, cherished friend, known for her kindness, her sweetness, her generosity, a beloved family, the center of her world. Diana Tom, 7 years old, devoted daughter, wife, mother, grandmother, who loved to sing karaoke. A giver and an adventurer who loved to explore new foods and travel the world. Charles Zhao, 76, grateful, reflective, believed in living to the life to the fullest. He constantly showed his family and friends and showered them with warm words of encouragement, hope, and love. Tao Yo, 64, a lifelong learner. He retired as a business manager and was pursuing a second career as a pharmacist while caring for his elderly mother. A man beloved by his wife, children, and friends for his compassion, his determination, and his wisdom. Lily Lee, 63, a matriarch with absolute strength, optimism, and grace. Her daughter wrote, "Stolen is a grandmother whose granddaughter fell asleep many nights nestled between her loving arms. Taken away is the opportunity for her grandson to feel her love and warmth." All of them lived lives of love, sacrifice, and service for their families, for their community. They represent a bigger story, who we are as Americans, embodying the simple truth that our diversity is the strength of this nation. We saw that strength in Maria Liang. Into creating a warm, welcome space seniors. That strength in Brandon Say, who met me at the airport, whom Jill and I have gotten to know. 20 minutes after the rampage at Star Ballroom, Brandon saw the same shooter walk into his family's own dance studio, just 2 miles away, pointing a gun at him. In an instant, he found the courage to act and wrestle a semi-automatic firearm away. Brandon saved lives. He protected the community. At Half Moon Bay, just 2 days later, he got it. Brandon, stand up. Half Moon Bay, just 2 days later, we saw heroism from police officers, firefighters, and other first responders who rushed into the danger to save lives. As many of you know, Jill and I invited Brandon as our guest at the State of the Union message because we wanted the country to know all of you, not just Brandon, all of you, the character of this community, the faith you have in this community, the pride. We see it in you across all of American life. Just this week, a film about resilience and power of the Asian American immigrant family made history at the Oscars. Echoing the heart of so many in this community. We also hear a message we've heard too often, including 2 years ago this week, after the spa shooting in the Atlanta area. Enough. Do something. We remember and mourn today, but I'm here with you today to act. Last year, after the mass shooting in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas, I signed into law, after being both places, a bipartisan Safer Communities Act, most significant gun safety law in almost 30 years. That was in addition to me signing more executive actions to reduce gun violence than any of my predecessors at this point in their presidencies. Today, I'm announcing another executive order that will accelerate and intensify this work to save more lives more quickly. First, this executive order helps keep firearms out of dangerous hands, as I continue to call on Congress to require background checks for all firearm sales. And in the meantime, my executive order directs my Attorney General to take every lawful action possible to move us as close as we can to universal background checks without new legislation. It's just common sense to check whether someone is a felon, a domestic abuser, before they buy a gun. The executive order also expands public awareness campaigns about the red flag orders, laws, which my son, before he died, Attorney General in Delaware, was a great proponent of and instituted. So more parents, teachers, police officers, health providers, and counselors know how to flag for a court that someone is exhibiting violent tendencies, threatening classmates, or experiencing suicidal thoughts that make them a danger to themselves and others, and temporarily remove that person's access to firearms. And it promotes, this executive order, safe storage for firearms, something every responsible gun owner agrees with. Second thing it does, the executive order ramps up our efforts to hold the gun industry accountable. It's the only outfit you can't sue these days. It does that by calling out for an independent government study that analyzes and exposes how gun manufacturers aggressively market firearms to civilians, especially minors, including by using military imagery. And it directs the Attorney General to publicly release alcohol, tobacco, and firearms inspection reports of firearms dealers who are cited for violation of the law. That way, policymakers can strengthen laws to crack down on those illegal gun dealers, and the public can avoid purchasing from them. Third, the executive order improves federal coordination to support victims, survivors, and their families and communities affected by mass shootings. The same way FEMA responds to your natural disaster in California and all around the nation, and it will help folks recover and build after folks recover and build after wildfires and superstorms and droughts. For example, we need to provide more mental health support and grief and trauma, and more financial assistance when a family loses the sole breadwinner or when a small business shuts down due to a lengthy shooting investigation. There's more in this executive order, but I'm not stopping there. Last week, I laid out in my budget that we invest more in safer communities and expand access to mental health services for those affected by gun violence. Congressional Republicans should pass my budget instead of calling for cuts in these services or defunding the police or abolishing the FBI, as we hear from our MAGA Republican friends. But let's be clear, none of this absolves Congress the responsibility from the responsibility of acting to pass universal background checks, eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability. And I'm determined, once again, to ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. I led that fight to ban them in 1994. The 10 years that law was in place, mass shootings went down. Our Republican friends let it expire 10 years later. And mass shootings tripled since then, tripled. So let's finish the job. Ban assault weapons, ban them again, do it now. Enough, do something big. Folks, let me close with this. Scripture says, the Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. A lot of us have been there. As you gather here today, I know your hearts are broken, but I know your spirits are strong. And as you remember and heal, I know the light of your loved one is once again going to lead you forward. It takes time. I tell everyone, at least it did with me, it takes time. But I promise you, the day will come when the memory of your loved one brings a smile to your lips before it brings a tear to your eye. Tear will never fully go away. But when you have that smile first remembrance, that's when you know. That's when you know you're going to make it. You're going to know you're going to make it. My prayer for all of you is that day will come sooner than later, but I promise you, it will come. God bless you all. I admire you so damn much.